Hey guys, it's me Kevin, and I am back with my proper AFL Ladder Predictions video, okay? This is my real one. I'm not going to do what I did in my last video and make a bunch of stupid predictions like putting Gold Coast in first spot. Okay, nah. It's not going to be a joke this time. This is going to be my proper ladder predictions for 2021. In 18th spot, we've got Adelaide. Yeah, they're in a bit of trouble right now like they were last year. They've lost Brad Crouch, which has made them even thinner on experience. And Carl Hartigan they lost as well. They're still the youngest list in the competition, and compared to others, their youth doesn't seem to be as talented as others. They do have Rory Sloane, which he should play more after having an injury riddled last year, but I feel like Adelaide, Tex Walker, he's declining as he has been for the past few years. I feel like Adelaide, they're in quite a lot of trouble, and I reckon they'll finish with another wooden spoon. In 17th place, we've got North Melbourne. Like Adelaide, they're quite inexperienced. They've lost a lot of players from last year, particularly some best 22 players like Brown, Higgins, and Wood, just to name a few. Although there were also some that were fringe as well. They're not that experienced, and they've got delusional board members that reckon they should be a top 14 for some reason. What they do have going as opposed to Adelaide is they've got a more experienced coach. I know he hasn't coached before, but he was a good general manager or operations manager, whatever that role was, at Brisbane. He did very well in that role, and I reckon he'll bring that. They also got Stevenson, which is a good grab. But overall, I feel like they'll struggle this year. In 16th place, we got Essendon. So their forward line was already weak, and now they've lost Fantasia and Danaher, even though Danaher didn't really play that much. But the loss that is going to hurt the most is that of Adam Sard. He was a very good player off half-back, and his move to Carlton is really going to hurt Essendon. They did get some draft picks in, but overall, they seem to be quite a weak team. Some experience, but quite a lot of inexperience. Their forward line hasn't really seemed to be addressed. And Ben Rudden, he's not really convincing me as a coach, so I reckon Essendon are going to be low on the ladder. 15th place, we got Hawthorn. So they get an easier fixture compared to the crap that they had to endure last year. And they do have a decent-ish midfield with people like Tom Mitchell and Jager Amira there. And you throw in, Phillips from Collingwood. And look, I reckon their midfield's okay, but overall, Sicily's going to be out for a year, and they've lost a lot of experience in Frawley, in Stratton, and I just feel the kids that they're blooding, like Adelaide, they're not really that talented, apart from Will Day. They don't really seem to have that talent that other clubs like Gold Coast have, so I reckon Hawthorn are going to struggle a bit this year. In 14th spot, I know this is a controversial one, but I'm putting Collingwood down here. Yes, they have got talent sprinkled across the midfield and the defence, but after the off-season they've had, it is hard to see them being any competitive this year. The racism issues circled around the club, Eddie Maguire's exit, plus the fire sale in where they gave away Treloar, Stevenson, and Phillips, two of them being in, well, what you could say a very negative way. They literally just didn't call them and just sent them away. Yeah, that's gonna make a bad impact on Collingwood. It's gonna bring morale right down. And the losses already hurt, given that they haven't actually added anyone in the off-season. But the morale, decline in morale, I feel like that's going to hurt Collingwood a lot, and I can see them not wanting to show up to a lot of games this year. In 13th place, they've got a future dynasty team in Gold Coast. Look, they're going to win more games this year as more of their young kids get another season of experience under their belt. They've got a lot of young talent, okay? They've probably got the best young talent in the competition, which they should, after the amount of concessions they've been given as of recent. I think Matt Rowell, if he gets fit this year, he'll make a good impact for Gold Coast. But given that they're young, and given that they faded out in the last few years, I can see that happening again. And while they'll start the season even better, I can see them being 7-1 after round 8. I reckon they will drop off significantly in the second half of the year. In 12th spot, I've got Sydney. And let's face it, if it wasn't for their forward line issues, I would have put him in the 8. They had a horror injury run last year. We had Kennedy, Parker, Franklin, Reed out for large chunks of the season. In Franklin's case, the whole season. And I think if you get some of those players back, at least the defence and the midfield would be alright. The defence was decent last year. Could definitely hold up. And they'll it's like top 8 standard, I reckon, their defence. I just feel like their forward, I don't know what's happening with Franklin. Reed, unreliable. I mean, Logan McDonald, they did draft him and he'd be a good forward for the next 10 years, but he's only 18. You can't expect him to make a massive impact. So, look, I think Sydney, they'll be competitive this year. They'll win some games, but their forward issues will be their downfall. In 11th spot, and not through any fault of their own, is St Kilda, okay? I'm sorry, Saints fans, I know your list looks good to make the top 6, but I just cannot see you getting past this fixture. 2 games against Port Adelaide, Richmond, West Coast and Geelong, away game against Brisbane, 2 trips to Sydney, 3 trips to Queensland, and Collingwood at the MCG. What more could you ask for than a horror fixture like that, okay? It could work to their advantage if they become very good. If they play like a top 2 team, they might actually bring teams like the top teams back down to their level, which could be all the difference. And they definitely do have the talent to compete in the top 6, but I just feel like they're going to have a fatigue issue, especially if they don't get... If they have a good start to the season, they might make the 8, but if they don't start off well, I think they're actually going to finish lower than 11th, given how bad their fixture is this year. 10th place, we've got GWS. They've got injuries for round 1, so I think they're going to lose that, which might actually help Saints fans. Look, I don't know what to make of this. They've lost Jeremy Cameron, plus plethora of young talent and players like Zach Williams. On the other hand, they've still got a stacked midfield with Taranto, Kelly, bloody Cornelio, Green, all those Hopper, all those players. They've got a stacked team still, but they've also lost a lot of talent, and I just feel like they're going to be that sort of inconsistent team this year like they were last year. I think 10th place finish is going to be them. In 9th place, another team which has been hamstrung by their forward line is Fremantle. Their defence could get him into the top 4. They've got great defence, and particularly when you throw Pearce and Hamlin back in, which they haven't played all of last year. Add that to a defence with Ryan, Lowe, Hughes. Yeah, good defence there. They defended well last year, defend even better this year. Midfield, I'm impressed with Brayshaw and Chera, and I think they'll develop into good midfielders. But their forward line... Lob's injured now. I don't know about Taberner. He was good last year, but is he a reliable number 1 target? Yeah, I reckon there needs to be more than just Taberner. Fife, yeah, he might have to help out in the forward line. Look, I think their defence will get them across some games, but their lack of firepower down forward will hurt the Dockers and they'll miss finals. In 8th spot, I've got Melbourne. But seriously, they finished 9th last year. And if they'd beaten some easy teams, then they would have easily made the 8. They need to make the 8 this year. Simon Goodwin's under a lot of pressure to keep his job. I think Melbourne will be motivated to make the 8 after missing out the finals for the 2nd time in 4 years in the 9th place position. I reckon Melbourne will just sneak into the 8 this time. They've got a decent midfield. Petrarca, he developed well. I reckon Angus Brayshaw, if he gets back to his best, they'll be okay. Ben Brown, he was a pretty good acquisition. And I think he'll help with Melksham and McDonald if he comes good in the forward line. They definitely have a talented list on paper, but it's just executing that's been a problem for the Demons. I reckon they'll just make the 8 this year, but they'll be inconsistent. 7th spot, I've got, yet again, the Western Bulldogs, okay? Yeah, they got a stacked midfield. I mean, Bontempelli, McRae, Dunkley, Hunter, Smith, and now Treloar. Okay, best... If the competition was only about midfields, yeah, premiership there. But that's the problem. It ends at the midfield. Who's a really good defender at the Dogs? Don't know. Who's a really good forward at the Dogs? You can say Norton, but he's still young. Yamari Ugle-Hagan, same thing as McDonald, too young, okay? Yeah, I think their midfield will help them win quite a lot of games, but given that they're too midfield heavy, I don't think they'll push for the top 4 just yet. Sixth spot, I've got Carlton. I'm impressed by them. You put Zach Williams and Adam Sard into the half-back line. Yeah, I think that's going to work out quite well. The team has been developing for a couple of years now. Last year, they were good at sometimes, but they were just too inconsistent. I reckon the young players get another year of experience. If the Kernos go well, Mark Murphy goes well. If Patrick Cripps also gets back to his best, 2019 best, and also if Walsh continues to develop, then I reckon Carlton, they'll rise. They'll do a Brisbane in 2019, just not as much. I reckon they'll be a top 6 team for this year, the Blues. Fifth place, we've got the Eagles. Yeah, I don't think they'll be making the top 4 because Elliot Yeo, I don't know when he's going to come back. He's having an issue with osteopubis, I think. They've got a good list still. I mean, they've still kept most of their list from last year intact. It's generally a high morale club. And they've got a good midfield. We know that. Also, but I think their issue is players like Kennedy and Hearn. They're getting older. I feel like they're going to be playing there last year. And I think they're going to drop off in standard a little bit. I think Duggan will have to go play more midfield time, maybe. I think they're talking about that. I just reckon with the Eagles, they're a good team, but they're on the decline. I reckon they'll still make top 6, but I reckon they'll miss the top 4. Fourth place, we've got Brisbane. I reckon Joe Danaher will fix their their forward problems. They obviously had an issue down forward last year. They were too inconsistent, and that ultimately cost them a minor premiership. So I reckon Danaher fixes that. If Nakia Cockatoo, if their good medical record continues and he becomes fit, he could actually be a decent player for Brisbane. But I think one of the issues with Brisbane is going to be their away form this year. It was not that good last year. They only won 33% of their away games. And it wasn't that great in 2019 either. So they do definitely have an issue away from home, which I think we'll see them have a slight decline. Also, they play Richmond and Geelong twice. So yeah, I think they'll make top 4, but I think they'll have a mini slide. Third place, we've got Geelong. And when you add Smith, Cameron, and Higgins to a team, okay, that's already one of the oldest lists in the competition, then you're gonna have to win a premiership, okay? A lot of their list is old, but it's still talented. Yeah, so as I said, you added those 3 teams, they're gonna help. Dangerfield and Selwood, they just need to keep playing. Hawkins, I'm not sure if last year was a fluke or if he could repeat his form, but I reckon that Geelong, if all goes well, they could definitely be in the frame for a premiership. Second spot is Richmond. Look, they haven't really done much last year, but that's the thing. Richmond have never really had to do much, and they're still winning premierships anyway. And as far as I'm concerned, until Richmond starts losing games, they're a champion team in my eye, and they obviously deservingly go in as premiership favourites. Nothing much else to be said, apart from, well, they're one of the top teams in the competition right now. And number 1, I am backing Port Adelaide to go back-to-back minor premiers. They have got a good list. They've got a good players, good experience in Boak, Gray, and Rockcliffe, Dixon, Jonas. They've got a lot of good players, plus some youngsters like Dersma, Butters, and what's his name, Rosie. Plus, I reckon Georgiades and Bergman will have more of a say this year. So yeah, I reckon I'm excited about Port Adelaide's list. It is a good list at the moment. But here's the main thing about why I think they'll be minor premiers. Their fixture. If St Kilda had an undeservingly hard fixture, Port Adelaide got an undeservingly easy fixture. They avoid playing every premiership contender twice. Literally, the hardest team they have to play twice is St Kilda. St Kilda. Alright, so I reckon Port Adelaide with an easy draw. And plus, they even get to play Richmond and Geelong at home. I reckon Port Adelaide back-to-back minor premiers. So, in the finals, I reckon Port Adelaide will take care of Brisbane at Adelaide Oval, while Geelong's poor opening round form continues against Richmond at the MCG. I reckon Melbourne will stun the Eagles at Optus Stadium, and there'll be big question marks about the Eagles' credentials going into 2022. Whilst I think the Bulldogs will finally get a win in the opening round against Carlton. In the semi-finals, I reckon Brisbane will take care of Melbourne easily. You shouldn't even be there. They'll absolutely smash Melbourne. And as for the other final, I reckon Geelong will take care of the Bulldogs. So going into the preliminary final, I reckon Port Adelaide will beat Geelong to make the grand final, given Geelong's poor form at Adelaide Oval, whilst Richmond will take care of Brisbane and make their 4th grand final in 5 years at the MCG. And now, the grand final. This is what I hope happens here. With about 15 seconds to go, the ball is in Port Adelaide's inside 50, but Richmond are up by 5 points. And it's just basically everyone tackling. Right at the end, the ball spills out of a pack. Xavier Dersma picks up the ball, kicks it into the goal, and at the last second, as the siren goes, and arrows will go everywhere through Richmond's hearts, and Xavier Dersma will be firing arrows everywhere as Port Adelaide win just their 2nd premiership at the last second. And so for the end of season awards, I reckon the Brownlow medal will go to Marcus Bontempelli. I think he'll be influential in the midfield, but not just that. I think he'll also be influential down forward as well. So I reckon Bont to get the Brownlow. Coleman, I reckon Tom Lynch, because there doesn't seem to be any other reliable key forwards at the Tigers, but the Tigers are always generally quite useful in their forward 50 entries. So I reckon Tom Lynch to win the Coleman. As for their Rising Star Award, I reckon Matt Rowell. If he doesn't pop his shoulder again, I reckon he'll definitely win the Rising Star. So yeah, and those are my predictions for 2021. I hope you liked the video. And these are I hope you like these predictions this time, not like the last ones where they were just all stupid. Please please subscribe, comment what you thought of the video down below and what you thought of my predictions and which ones are better, this one or my last one. Check out some of my other videos and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.